Welcome to Athar's Garage. In this video, I'm going to be assembling bags 3 and 4 on the Team Associated B6.3. Let's get started. Alright, so before we start, one of the local guys, named Courtney Vaughn, all the tips that I've been mentioning, even in steps or bags 1 and 2, they're all from him. I want to give him a shout out and say thank you for all the tips and give him credit where credit is due. Before you take parts off this caster block insert, which are these pieces here, there's a tab. See if you can get that focused in. There's a tab on the top or bottom, however you look at it. Do not, I repeat, do not trim that off, because that is a way to indicate how you're installing it and how many degrees of caster that you are actually putting in. All right. So bag 3, step 1. Let's get everything in the plate here. Get organized. Some nice carbon fiber bits in there. All right, and we're gonna end up using the bearings out of bag 1 because I guess they put all the bearings in that bag. Another thing to note before we do step 1, there are 2 sets of these steering blocks. There's a 4 and a 3 millimeter, and the kit setup requires a 4 millimeter. And if you look on the back, on this side, you'll actually see 3L and 4R. So we're going to end up using the 4s. Let's get those off. All right, so now we're gonna install the bearings and the front axle. So the bearings are 5 by 10 by 4. Let's measure 5 by 10 by 4. All right, on page 3, you can check and make sure you're using the right bearings. And again, I put the rubber seals out. There you go. And do the other one. I'm only going to do one side because the other side is a repeat of this. That way the video is not too long. But I'll go from there. So we need to get an M3 by 6 millimeter button head screw. We're going to get an axle because you want the hex to be facing the outside. So the threaded end will go on the side that's flat. So it'll look like that. And then what we'll do is we have that screw. I'm going to put a bit of Loctite on there. And that'll screw into the axle and hold it in place. Kind of surprised they didn't put a washer on that side. I guess there's going to be enough engagement with the bearing to prevent that axle from sliding out. Yeah, looks fine. Wipe any excess. Thread locker off. And then use my really tighten it down too much. Just snug it up, and it's probably good. And so you're gonna do this for the other side as well. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install the steering block arm with the ball stud and lock nut. So we have one of these that we're gonna install. It looks like it's gonna install like that. All right, so you're gonna install the ball stud onto this carbon fiber piece. So that way when you put it on the steering block, the ball stud is on the opposite side of these raised pieces here. So remember, the ball stud is on the opposite side there. So kind of take a look at that, how it goes together. And then you're gonna install it with 2 and 3 by 8mm screws. Remember, you're going into plastic, so you don't need to crank it down too hard. But yeah, so there you go. So that's that one piece and the orientation of it. So take a good look, because it was kind of confusing from what's in the manual. So continuing on with bag 3 step 2, we're going to need the caster blocks. So we're going to take those off and trim those. And we're also going to need the caster block inserts. There's 3 inserts included in the kit, but it says the +5 degree is the standard insert used. So we're gonna use that one with the tab facing up. Remember, do not cut the tab off, because that's an indication of how you're installing it and how it's being tuned. So take note of that. But trimming this is kind of difficult because it didn't come off cleanly. So be careful when you're trimming it so you don't cut yourself. It's a tough piece of plastic, so be careful. But it definitely feels like really good quality plastic. Just wish that they would have actually taken the time and taken these off the part trees and trimmed them for you, especially the harder stuff, so that way you don't hurt yourself. So we're gonna take the 5 degree caster block insert off the part tree and trim that as well. Do not cut the tab off. So we're gonna insert the caster block insert with the tab facing up. And it actually has a little cutout for the tab, so it goes in flush. And then we're gonna install the 10mm ball stud with the lock nut on the back. It looks like the lock nut has a cutout, so you don't have to hold it. And get that started, and then do the rest by hand, so I don't damage the plastic. by over torquing it. There's that. So now we're done with bag 3, step 2. And we can move on to step 3, which is installing the caster hat bushings. And then make sure you got the right one. We're doing the left side. So we have, oops. Looks like it's gonna go like that. So that's the orientation that you want. Ball stud in the front, and this ball stud in the back. And then we got 2 M3 by 14 millimeter screws that will go in from the top and from the bottom to hold in the steering block. Don't tighten it too much. Just as soon as you feel it snug up, it's good. You don't want to tighten it too much where it binds, so make sure it moves freely. So there we go. Do the same for the other side. And then we can now install this onto the control arm. All right, so time to install the steering blocks, the caster blocks onto the control arm. So it looks like we've got caster spacers that are plastic. Come off the part tree. I don't think there's any trimming really needed for that. Then you've got your hinge pin. So it looks like the hinge pin is going to be captured in the front by the way the control arm is designed. So put the hinge pin on first, or slide it in, put that spacer or washer that's plastic, and then you can put in the steering block. So there it is. And now you use one of the small M2 by 4 millimeter screws in the back to prevent that pin from falling out. And I have a feeling we're gonna have the same issue we did on the inside hinge pin, where that screw head doesn't quite hold that hinge pin in very well, or doesn't look like it does. So we'll take a look at that, see if we need to add a washer. But yeah, as you can see, that head barely covers that hinge pin, so I'm afraid that might back out. I'm gonna add a washer from my spare parts bag. I don't think that washer is going to interfere with anything, so I think it's a good measure to have to prevent that hinge pin from backing out, just in case you hit something hard. So that, you can see, holds it in much better. So do this other side and we're done with step 3. Bag 4. We'll start bag 4 next. All right, moving on to bag 4. All right, so we're gonna need the rear control arms, so I'm gonna take that off the tree and trim them. Again, I'm just gonna do one side so it shortens up the video. But you know, we're gonna do the same thing on both sides, so nothing to worry about. I really like the feel of these plastics, especially the control arms. They feel very dense, and I feel like they're gonna be pretty strong to hold up to, I don't wanna say abuse, because I don't wanna abuse my car, but I'm not the best driver, so it'll probably see some crashes and some horrible landings, but I'm pretty sure that these arms are definitely gonna be able to handle whatever I throw at it, so. Okay, so there's a little confusion about the C block. The C block is actually the one with the pins. It doesn't show it in the manual, which I'm kind of surprised because that's a very important feature. But those pins actually line up in here. So make sure you're aware of that. I installed the pieces wrong in this one, so I'm just gonna pop them out real quick and install them in those. So we've got the C block, and they're gonna install like that. So that way that dot is facing the outside, and that's what the manual is recommending for a stock setup. And then we're gonna use 2 M3x6 flathead screws to put this in. So put the pins in to the chassis. You'll see the holes are gonna line up. And then you're gonna wanna put some Loctite on those screws. Put some Loctite on there. And I didn't tighten that one down. I wanna make sure I can get both screws in first. All right, and there's that. Got C blocks installed. Now we can install, looks like the D block, which is the other piece that we had, along with the control arms. So we're gonna take, again, it's saying to use the 1-degree pills. Take those off the part tree. And the pills are actually gonna be facing the inside of the mount. So there you go. So the hole's gonna be towards the center, and you can see here that focus, the dots facing the inside on both sides. Looks like we need the rear bumper, which is this piece. It's weird, it says to put it all together, but there's actually no screws that it calls out to screw into the D block. But it doesn't look like there's any threads in the D block, so it must go into the gearbox of some sort. So let's just set all that up and then go from there. There's these 2 rear arm spacers that are plastic that are on the parts trees. So break those off. You probably want to trim them because they didn't come off clean for me. Just be careful because it's kind of hard to hold this piece because it's so small. So it looks like the 2 holes are the back of the car. So this will be the left side. So I'm going to install the pin and the washer on this side, and then on this side as well, I'll do pin and washer. And then there's a cutout at the bottom of the D block, and that'll go, it faces outward. Looks like the bumper goes in there. And there's that, so that's then we got to install these studs in the middle hole on the front of the arm, which I only have one hole. So I will install it on that one hole. So don't tighten it too much because it's going to shoulder out in the control arm. There's no exit, so I don't want to force it. So I do the same on the other side. And it looks like that is the end of bag 4, step 2. Thanks for watching this episode. I'll be back with a new video with step 5 alone, because that looks like a pretty busy assembly for the gearbox. So I'll separate 5 and 6 into separate videos because they're pretty busy. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Put down in the comments if you have any questions or any tips in these bag parts, and that might help other viewers. See you on the next one.